All right, Demaree. Fort Demaree was a lawyer in Kentucky. Next slide. This is why people's eyes glaze over when you talk about it. So my goal today is to keep it simple. So those of you who've done it are not allowed to say, that's not the way I do it. My goal is it's simple. You get some basics here and you can build on that and change it from the So I need your imagination. I've been trying to cold for a while, so I may be goofy. These are boxes. Deep, medium, shallow, I don't care. They're boxes, okay? This is a queen excluder. In this case, it's a worker and drone excluder too, but it's supposed to be a. So you've got your hive, and it could be whatever configuration you have. Maybe you have two deeps and a medium with a queen excluder on the plates. Maybe you got three mediums, whatever. Whatever it is, you're going to bring out to this hive a new box of whatever size matches where you think your queen is. So if you think your queen is in a deep, you bring out a deep with drawn comb, empty, new box. Okay? Because the goal here is to, as we talked about, make sure the queen has room. So now you've got this new box. You go down to where the queen is, and you take maybe the first frame out. Now it's empty. Next frame, oh, it's got some honey and pollen. So you put it in the new box. You're taking some frames out. Next frame, oh, cap brood. Put that next. Next frame. Oh, there's the queen. See how easy you want to find the queen?
Oh, yeah.
You stick it in there, and then you fill up the rest of the box with the empty cone, empty drawn cone. You then put it on the bottom of the hive, where the hive was, on the stand. You put the queen excluder over it, and then you put the you also brought an empty honey super out, a new honey super. It could be foundation. You put it on, and then whatever boxes were left on the hive, with the box that used to have the brood in it on top. So now you've put the queen down here with three frames, honey, cap brood, and the queen. All the rest on fresh comb. So she has lots of room to lay eggs. You've moved brood up here and nurse bees, some of which are going to go down to help take care of the queen. A lot of them up here. So there's less congestion. There's not as many bees down below for the queen. There's less congestion.
Howard, is that, you said brood up top, brood and eggs? Or
Brood and I move everything.
everything, yeah.
Okay, there's some differences of opinions about that. So the other thing, if I do, as long as you don't have a real small hive beetle problem, is I also, above the queen excluder here, the second box, I set it back. So there's a gap there. Even if it's going to rain, I put a gap there. So those of you who have 3 years or less experience, why do I want to put the gap there? I could come up with four reasons to put the gap. Any less experienced people want to guess why I put that gap there? Yes.
So they have an entrance without having to go.
Right. So now the bees coming in with honey and pollen stuff can go in here. They don't have to go through the queen excluder. Okay. And there's less congestion down below because now the field bees are coming in above. It's less crowded down below. What else? What other reasons? You're not a beginner.
Not interacting with the old queens, the previous queen's pheromones, they're kind of.
Yeah. There's a couple things. When you move this brood up, you've also brought drones up. If you don't give them they want to fly, right? They want to go look for the queen. They need a way out If it's closed up, they have to go through the queen excluder and they can't. And you'll find all these heads of drones stuck in between the wires. And it's kind of sad. So you want an escape for the drones. Also, you have now moved a lot of the brood up. It may be far enough away from the bottom box that the bees make queen cells. So a week later, you go in and look for queen cells. And if you find some, you can make a split or you can cut them out. And when you have a queen, it's just down below. Well, if you miss a queen cell, what happens? She hatches. How's she going to mate? She'd have to go through the queen excluder and out, if you don't have the gap, to mate and come back. And then, get two. It's better to give her, she may still end up doing that. At least she has a chance of going it up here and you end up with two queens. And then you can decide to split or whatever. Or you could, what I would do is dispatch the queen here and let them have the new queen. You effectively requeened your hive. So that's what I think is the simple way of doing it. Now we talk a lot about the rolling Demaree. So the rolling Demaree means you do this every week. You now have the queen 7 days later, the queen has filled some frames. You can take them, put them up here and take cap brood and put it down here or empty frames and move it in. I often end up putting another honey super on top. And I stagger every other one I stagger in the summer. Because you also get better ventilation. You'll see the bees flapping their wings and helping to reduce the moisture content. And if it rains, you often see bees along here kind of diverting the water off of themselves. Or if it goes down, hopefully your hive is a little bit leaning forward and the water will just go out.
Howard, can that be achieved also with the inner cover, that slit that we put up
I
on
don't
the
think-
top, or not as well, obviously?
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah, I like the ventilation and everything else, but I don't have problems with small hive beetles either. So yeah, I don't think that's a very big gap. I mean, in theory, the drones could get out, I guess, but they'd have to come up through the whole.
Extremely new at this. So you have two hives. Do you keep stacking on top of the original hive, or do you, if you?
This is not two hives. This is all still one hive.
Okay, it's all still one hive.
Yeah. So I moved them, all I did was move brood from wherever the queen was up to the top. Most of the brood, left the queen below,
Empty frames below.
50 frames below.
So there's one other technique that I generally use, same Demaree concept, but I start at the top, I pull honey frames out, they go off to the side. Then I move everything off, get down into the bottom where the queen is, pull those frames, Demaree them up. Then I put empty frames that I've extracted last week and drop them into the brood chamber down at the bottom. So it's a three-way. So I go off and up and refill so that it's not just moving a rotation this way, it's rotating out, in, down, and so it's I generate a lot of honey that way.
My goal is to extract one a year.
Yeah, and I'm doing, last year I did 11 extractions, I think, and the year before I did 14 extractions. So I was doing extraction every week or two. Generated a lot of honey, but it also gives me that, it's a lot more work, absolutely. But it also gave me the ability to say, this is honey from the 12th of July or the 14th of June or the 8th of May. And customers really like that when they can say, oh, I can taste the difference between the honey I really like that it May 8th honey. You know, and they do. I mean, they literally came back and the guy said, I want your third harvest honey. And it's like, okay, and I've set bottles aside for him and he kept coming back and bought every bottle of that particular honey because that's what he liked. Other people tasted it and went, ugh. I want that other stuff. I want that clover honey, you know, the good stuff. Ugh, okay, whatever.
But that's, Mark, that's also true to prevent the hive being honey bound.
Absolutely.
Because they will fill up, if they're lazy, they won't go up to the supers, they'll fill up the deeps, you gotta get them out of the deeps.
Got to get them out. Yeah,
Room for the brood.
exactly. Which is why that rotation is really, really important.
So I'll point out that if your queen was in the deep box, that means you have to have a deep box up here. I think that
Yeah, question in the back.
A question about the spacer box. Can you talk about the necessity if you decided not to put a spacer box, if you put 2 spacer boxes? How important is
Oh,
that?
you mean between where the brood is and the queen excluders?
Right.
I usually put 2 mediums.
Say somebody didn't put one, is the Demaree still effective? You're providing the queen a lot more space if you're putting an empty comb in the bottom brood chamber. I wasn't sure
I
how.
think if you keep that box in between fairly empty, so there's not that honey dome, I think that helps. I don't know if other people.
George Demaree had space between the queen and the up front brood. So it's a good question. Like, what happens if you just moved it out of the brood chamber above a queen excluder and right into a deep? I don't know the answer to that, Greg, how effective that is. In my mind, you're really not decongesting the bees at all because you still have you're decongesting because you have blank frames in the bottom box, but you still have all the bees there. So I don't know the answer to that.
You need
The
the
nurse bees are gonna be up in the open brood frame.
Say that again.
Nurse bees are gonna be up in the open brood area, potentially. That's where you'd expect the majority of them.
Have you done it with no spacer box?
I have.
No, I thought one of the initial theories was not huge space between the 2 brood chambers.
That's the way it was described being done. For those people who Demaree who don't have space, anyone want to comment on that? Say again? I'm wondering people who Demaree who move brood up will
So
put
the
it right
brood's
above the
here.
queen excluder. So they don't have empty box, they don't have supers between the Demaree. That's the question. How effective
I
is
think
that?
if you don't have another box, it's not a Demaree, it's something else.
If you're moving brood and separating the queen from the capped or filled brood, I think that's still the Demaree method. You're providing artificial space for the queen in the brood chamber.
Yeah, mine would just set an empty box without the bird chamber.
Say it again.
Because the queen is still in her congested box and she could still get found there by pollen, honey, whatever is.
So
Yeah.
last year, not on purpose, but we had the 2 deeps, one on top of the other. And within like 2 weeks, we became honey bound and we had to deal with that and pull out the problems. So I don't know if like having them not having that degree of separation if the bottom box is gonna start just getting into.
So I think the idea is what you're trying to get out of it, at least that's how I feel. Like if you're trying to manage swarming, then that's probably okay. But if you want to increase your honey production, which is also the purpose of Demaree, then you probably want that extra boxes so you can kind of increase your honey production. So I think if you don't put those boxes in between, then you don't have space for extra honey. So I think it's intent. I'm guessing it's what you want to intend to get out of your Demaree.
Typically when I have Demaree in the spacer box, I'm not harvesting that spacer box until the end of the season anyway. I try to reduce manipulation as much as possible. You're doing so much manipulation in this configuration anyway,
Absolutely.
as much as possible. And yeah, so I don't know, be interested to see.
Getting more arguments to keep the.
Greg, I need you to run about 10 hives this year, 5 one way, 5 the other way.
Again, I'm gonna be a fan of keeping this open. I don't have this spot.
I can do it. I can kind of get organized though.
This is really helpful, thank you. From your experience, can you step back to take April this month, how crazy the weather?
Yeah.
And so I struggle with, when do you start this? Because I'm worried about.
Divided the brood, right? So now you've got brood, and if it's snowing like it did this morning at my house, they gotta keep it 95 degrees here, they gotta keep it 95 degrees
Yeah.
here. So I haven't done it yet.
Okay, so the weather has a big factor.
And the strength of the hive has a
That was my next
factor.
question. How many frames do
Right.
you have? Let's say you're running a 10.
Yeah.
Before you start the Demaree. So do you have like 8 frames filled with bees? That strength?
No, filled with brood. If you have 8 frames filled with brood, you're in trouble.
No, not brood, I'm talking frames of bees. Like
you
how
have to
strong does a
judge,
colony
you know,
need
it's
to be?
tricky to judge whether you think it might be swarming.
That's, yeah.
My comment, before reconfiguring for the Demaree, I keep 2 deeps on there, so it allows the population of the bees to increase to a point where they can sustain 2 separate brood nests. When you have, because typically they're not gonna fill out a full box all the way across. If they do, you'll be in a situation where swarms are already ready to happen. If you have 2 boxes, they have 4 frames or so being brood between those 2. Then it's kind of a more natural as the startup of the Demaree. The startup phase of the Demaree is probably the most labor intensive, making sure you have the right amount of bees in each location, you have the separation, you have the resources set up. After you get to the rhythm, it can be more manageable. Still a lot of
See,
manipulation.
for me, if there's like brood in 2 different boxes, I would just move them all up above the. So if you have brood in a couple of different, maybe your hive before you started was like 3 medium, 8 frame mediums. So there could be brood in like the upper 2 boxes. I would move those 3 frames down into a new box. And then I would put my new honey box up here, and then I would take both brood boxes and put them up here. And then the next week, you have to check through all of them for queen cells. And then I would just Demaree from here up the top box the next week, because they're gonna hatch out then.
I've never seen anyone run a single medium box below a queen excluder at Demaree. Has anyone ever done that? Run a single
I do
medium
2
and not a
8 frame
deep?
mediums.
Yeah, not successfully. I've done
That's
it.
great.
I've never run anything standard, but it's probably for another conversation, but. I have a method that works really well and it also prevents having put more queen cells. If the bottom brood chamber is split up between 2 mediums and you put a queen excluder between the bottom medium in the brood chamber, you still have 2 mediums as the brood chamber. Keep the queen in the bottom medium, move up from the bottom medium to the top medium above the queen excluder. Now you have fresh frames on the bottom brood chamber. So it's a kind of a double step, and then you move them up to the top. So it's to be working pretty well, but I think we can talk more detail.
As I said, your eyes glaze over when you start talking about Demaree, because there's all these different options that get thrown at you. And if you're a beginner, it's confusing. That's why I try to keep it really basic.
Good job.
Thank you.
If you want to extract honey, when do you put another queen excluder on top and then your honey supers?
I don't. A lot of this shows 2 queen excluders. I don't understand that unless you get a queen up above.
I
You
do.
haven't cut out the queen cells.
I understand exactly why, because I Demaree the queen up above. And
Well, if you screw up, there's, you know. all
yeah,
the
you
rules.
screw up, and that's all that second that queen excluder up top does. It keeps, when you screw up, not if, but when you screw up, it keeps the queen from getting down into your honey, those 2 honey supers. There's a question over this.
So I'm wondering what happens with the rain, with that, extra opening at the top. So, like, if it's just a light drizzle or something, it'll be fine, but if you're having a real rainstorm, is it better to just split the Demaree and put it back, put it into,
I keep it open from May till the honey flows over.
so they're okay with all the
Yeah.
water coming in?
They'll protect it some. I've never had anything. But again, small hive beetles may change the situation because they.
Yeah, you do this down south and people like shake their head at you. We don't do that where we have no problems. We're starting to have more high beetle problems.